Welcome to the Soul Grit Podcast. I'm Ann Taylor McNeese, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I also love Jesus, and I'm passionate about all things gospel and therapy. I created Soul Grit to be at the intersection of mental health and Christian faith. Christ followers need a place to ask questions and get answers about mental health. Join me as we dive into real stories and real questions from people who want to honor God with their hearts, souls, and minds. Hey, welcome back to the Soul Grit Podcast. This is Anne, and today's going to be a little different. You might notice a different graphic on the cover, and that's because I'm joined here today with my friend, Ivy. You heard Ivy before. Say hello, Ivy.
Hello, everyone.
If you guys remember this voice, you heard her in, I think it was episode 8, way back in the beginning of the podcast, where she talked about sleep and using cognitive behavioral therapy for sleep and insomnia. And so that was kind of like a really informative and helpful episode. But today Ivy came back just to have some fun with me, right?
Oh, absolutely. I'm all about the fun.
Yeah. So we are actually going to be talking about Disney's Encanto today. And Ivy, tell the listeners why you wanted to talk about Encanto.
Let me tell you something. I have a maybe slight obsession with Encanto because it really just reminds me of my family a little bit. Don't tell them. Don't tell them. And so many other families that I have encountered, especially as a therapist. So I think there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah. So, Ivy, you're a mom and I'm a mom. Our kids are close in age. Can you say the ages of your kids?
My son is 13 and my daughter is 9, almost 10.
Okay. And mine are 11, 9, and 6. And so it's not unusual for us to have Disney Plus on in the household, right?
Of course, that's normal.
Yeah. And so I don't know if you're like me, where like a new Disney movie comes out and you're kind of like, okay, yeah, I'm going to let the kids watch that. And then you might just have like something else going on and that you're doing while the kids are watching it because you're a mom and you got to stay busy and all that stuff. And so that was kind of the attitude that I came into Encanto with, that like, okay, the kids are going to watch it, but it'll just be cute and the music will be catchy and then, move on with my life. And then I started seeing different posts from therapists on like Facebook groups that we're a part of. And I was like, what's happening? All these therapists are talking about this Disney movie. Like there must be something more. And so then when I actually sat down and watched it, I was like, oh, so it's a family therapy movie.
Exactly. You know what? My experience with Encanto was a little bit different. So I say often that I'm really 12 years old. I'm just pretending to be in my 30s. And I do love cartoons. I really do. And it was over the Christmas break. We were on vacation and we all sat as a family, including my parents, which was rare because my parents don't do cartoons. And as I was watching this, I was like, oh my gosh, this is us. But I can't say anything out loud. I better just be quiet and act normal. And I've been obsessed ever since then.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know what's funny? Yesterday, I took my middle child to the orthodontist, and his orthodontist is about the same age as us, like late 30s. They had the movie on in the office, and his orthodontist started talking to me about the TikToks he was watching and how people are talking about the mental health implications of the film. So I was there sitting waiting for my son to get his braces adjusted. And I texted you and I was like, let's do this episode because I know you love it. And it'll be fun to talk about, and it'll be a little change of pace for the Soul Grit podcast. And so never fear, everyone. We are going to tie this into your Christian faith. So that is coming. Stay tuned. This episode is for everybody. If you haven't watched the movie yet, you probably want to go and do that. And then you'll feel a little more connected after you hear what we have to say. But, well, let's get going. We're going to talk about kind of like the family systems overview of the Madrigal family.
Yes.
So tell us what you see, Ivy.
Okay. So Abuela has clearly gone through just a horrific trauma. She's been displaced from her home. She's gone through, I guess, like war. So I see her as the immigrant refugee. Husband dies, and she's left with these babies. Just, I can't even imagine, young mom with triplets. And then she's left with this miracle. And she really believes that it is her job to protect her family, keep this miracle alive, and almost give back the blessings that she's been blessed with by helping this entire town. And as she's on her quest to keep things normal and healthy for her family and keep the family together, she almost destroys the family in some way, you know. So she's the antagonist who really isn't. And it just really shows how trauma, unhealed trauma, can be passed down the generational line without even knowing it. So I see a lot of trauma just all over the place with Abuela.
Okay. And so then the next generation is this set of triplets, and it's Pepa and Julieta and Bruno. Okay. And so how do you see that trauma passed down into this generation?
Oh my goodness. Pepa is a ball of nerves. She just anxious, anxious, anxious. And we see that she's not being validated at all. Whenever she has a cloud, everybody's like, Pepa, you have a cloud. Just like,
get rid of those emotions.
Get rid of those emotions. Like, what's wrong with you, Pepa? And she's just anxious, anxious, anxious. And she's wanting to be perfect. There was a scene where Abuela is looking at her. They're getting ready for something. Pepa has a cloud. And Abuela is like, you have a cloud. And Pepa is like, what do you want from me? Like, she's so overwhelmed. But nobody sees that. They just look at her as like, she's just too much. She's too much for us.
Yeah.
And then we have Julieta, who she's that one person in the family who it appears like she's not really affected too much negatively by all of the trauma that has happened in the family. You know, she's the healer. She's the lover. She's the soft one emotionally. Her daughter can come and bond with her. Like, she's just the nurturer within the family. So again, that's one thing I do have to say though. Because your family has struggled with trauma doesn't necessarily mean that you will inherit trauma. Because I hear people ask me that all the time. Like, my mom suffered this horrible trauma. Does that mean that I'm going to experience the same thing as her? No, not necessarily, you know. And of course, that brings us to Bruno.
Oh, we don't talk about Bruno.
No, we don't talk about Bruno. Like, we just don't. Like, Bruno, literally, he sees the future and he actually disappeared. And nobody's looking for Bruno.
Yeah.
That
is so
odd.
funny.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like they're all relieved that he's disappeared.
Yes. Because he was the one who sees the future. He says things as they are. When he sees things about to happen, things that are negative, he just says it like, this is about to happen. Some of the things he sees are just observations. And some of the things he sees are actual prophecies. But nobody wants to hear that, because remember, Abuela is trying to keep this perfect family going. They want everything to be colorful and bright and wonderful. And I don't want this guy to come in and ruin our magic. So they're almost relieved, like, at least he's gone and we'll never talk about him. And families will do that sometimes with trauma. Like, this really horrible thing will happen. And it's like, let's not talk about it, because if we talk about it, we're going to taint the family. So we're just going to pretend it's not happening. But it's eating away at the house. Literally, it's eating away at the foundation of the house. But we're all going to pretend like it's all good. Like, God has our back. We're all good. We're not going to talk about anything. Let's just move on and act like we're perfect.
Yeah. I noticed even in this song about Bruno, like the people who come in the town square and they say like these terrible things that Bruno said about them.
Yes.
It's like, he said my fish was going to die and then it did. And I'm like, 100% of people who have fishes have a dead fish at some point.
Yes.
And the other two are like, he said I was going to grow a gut, or he said I was going to lose all my hair. And like, what percentage of men have one of those two things happen to them as they age? So Bruno wasn't saying any, like, in those situations, he wasn't saying like these terrible things. He was just saying like, this is life. And people couldn't accept that. They thought it was negative.
Absolutely. And I think we're like that as humans. Sometimes we think that reality equals negativity. Like, if I say to you, like, I'm noticing this pattern and something might change in your life, and you're like, no, if you're not going to talk to me about my life being perfect and everything being rainbows and sunshine, then you're a negative person and you're toxic, which I feel like that word is sometimes overused. So I'd just much rather just push you out and cancel you.
Yeah. Okay. So in the next generation, we don't have to go into each of these, but I was thinking about the cousin Dolores. She has this gift of like supernatural hearing, right?
Yes.
How is this a plot hole or is this a plot feature that she doesn't hear Bruno in the walls of the house?
She hears Bruno in the walls of the house, but nobody believes her.
Did she speak about it?
She did. She
This
said
part.
that she associates him with the sound of shifting sand, and she hears him mumbling, but nobody will believe her is the problem. So she can hear him the entire time, but everybody's like, shh, shh, we don't talk about Bruno, just move away.
Okay. Yeah. So what do you think about that character, Dolores, in the family system as somebody that can hear everything?
Yes. She can hear everything, but she's not really allowed to speak about all the different dynamics that she's seeing. I feel like that would also bring up some type of anxiety because you can see everything going on, but you're not quite allowed to say, like, things here are not perfect. And there's literally somebody at the back of the wall and I can hear him, but it must be just really, really nerve wracking and probably drives her crazy a little bit because at the end when they found Bruno, she had mentioned like I told you. I don't know who she was talking to, like her brother or somebody. Like, I told you. I'm like, that must really drive you nuts to see. Like, I can hear this guy the entire time. Like, he's not gone, but nobody's believing her. And families will do that. Like, let's not talk about it. She's like a mini Bruno almost. She's talking. She can hear things that Bruno can see. Almost.
She's trying to speak the truth or the reality. And they're not accepting it. So, and then she has two little brothers, right? Camilo and Antonio.
Yes.
What roles do you see those two playing?
Camilo is almost the perfect person in that family, in my opinion, because he's a shapeshifter. You know, he can become whomever the community needs him to become. So that must be just such a wonderful gift for him because he basically is a perfect person. Like, he becomes whomever you need him to be. You see him when they're getting ready for the big ceremony. He's like high-fiving people. He's playing with the kids. He can also relate to the adults. Like, he can be whomever you want him to be, but who is he really? Like, does he actually know who he is? You know, so on the outside, that's perfect. Like, yeah, everybody loves me. But on the inside, does he really know who he is? But we don't know because, you know, the movie doesn't really address that. He seems fine. He seems happy in the movie.
But from a family therapy perspective too, we do see shapeshifters sometimes, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
See people that have to fill so many different roles to keep different parts of their family happy that they end up losing their sense of identity for themselves.
Yes, absolutely. That's a dangerous place to be.
Although we do see Camilo using his ability kind of in a self-serving way, like when he wants to tease someone or when like the scene where he wants to get more food. So he pretends to be someone else, you know, he kind of uses it to his advantage. What about Antonio?
Absolutely. Antonio is just a sweetheart. You know, he's the tender little one who can talk to the animals. And at the beginning, you see him be extremely nervous because he's scared that he's not going to get a gift like his cousin, because that is the absolute worst thing that you can be in that family. You didn't get a gift, which to me is interesting because Abuela doesn't have a gift. Abuela has no gift, but luckily
she's in
for
charge.
him, she's in charge. So that's her gift, I guess, to be the keeper of this candle and to make sure everybody is being a good steward of their gift. But Antonio seems to be good because he has a cousin that he can rely on and can support and he's close to. And I think that's one of the takeaways that I love about this movie is that even though your family is not necessarily perfect or there's trauma around you or difficulties around you, the power of connection is so important. Connection might not necessarily make your family perfect. Nobody's family is perfect, but it's so important to have those positive bonds, you know, in people that can validate you and encourage you when things are kind of shaky for you.
Yeah. Okay. So before we get to the characters in Mirabelle's generation, let's
Mhm.
quick go to those that married in. So we have, hey guys, really quick, I want to interrupt the interview here. I'm in the editing process and realizing that we were using the wrong name for one of the characters. And it might not matter to a lot of you, but for Disney fans out there, I didn't want to be getting emails saying I was using the wrong name. So for the next couple of minutes as we're talking, we're saying Osvaldo, but what we really mean is Felix. And I know those sound nothing alike. I know Osvaldo is a different character in the story, a minor character, and somehow that name got stuck in our heads. And so I'm really sorry. Just anytime you hear that name, think Felix for the next couple of minutes. And back to the interview. Osvaldo and Agustin.
Yes.
And they are kind of like they're a dynamic part of the family, but they don't have a gift, but they're kind of like
Yes.
along for the ride.
Right.
What do you think about those two?
So I always forget the name, but Peppa's husband,
Osvaldo.
Yes, he's the balance, I think, because Peppa is this ball of nerves. She's anxious all the time. She's worried. She's trying to do her best, but she clearly is not making Abuela happy at all. And her husband is this really comical person. He's really trying to support her. You know, he's like, let's not talk about Bruno because, you know, we don't want a hurricane to happen again. Like, we can't do that. And he's really just trying to support her the best way he can, even though he's not necessarily allowing her to have feelings. Mm-hmm. He's like, okay, you see him in one scene, he's like pushing the cloud away, like, oh my gosh, we can't have this anymore. But he's really trying his best because he understands, like, we need things to be perfect to keep Abuela happy and to keep this magic going. And a lot of times spouses will do that. They don't call things as they see them because they don't want to rock the boat. Who wants to rock the boat? You don't want to be the bad guy. You want to be the one who just is able to fit in, go with the flow, don't stick out like a sore thumb.
It kind of reminds me of the dynamic when there's a marriage in which one spouse has a substance abuse problem and the other one has to, like, they know it's not right and they don't want to keep it there, but they have to do certain things to keep the family safe while enabling the problem.
He's definitely an enabler, you know, for sure, because he's not really doing anything to make the problem better. He's just like, let's just fly under the radar. Let's keep Abuela happy. Let's keep this family going. Let's not shake things up at all.
Yeah. And then the other brother-in-law,
Augustine, he's helpful, but he's just a mess, you know. I think what did Mirabelle say? She said something about he's accident prone, but he means well. So he's going around the town and he's trying to help, just like his wife, Julieta. Like, she's the helper, she's the nurturer, and he's going around the town trying to help, but he's always getting stung by bees, poor thing, you know. Those are those family members who, they do see things are not perfect and they do try, but they just keep getting stuck as they're trying, or maybe they don't have enough support, but they're trying their best. To me, like, he's a good standout character. Like, I'd much rather you actually try to make things better than just pretend and just like be the comic relief who's like, I don't see anything going on. So he's trying, he's failing, but he's at least trying to make things better for everyone.
Yeah. Okay. And so then it kind of like the action kind of heightens around these three sisters, Luisa, Isabella, and Mirabelle. So we'll save Mirabelle for last, but let's talk about Luisa first. So Luisa's the strong one.
Oh my goodness. I see Luisa's in my practice. Like, that is what I do. That's my niche completely in my practice. And Luisa is the one who, like, she's carrying the entire community on her shoulders, literally, right? Whenever there's a problem, even a problem that they can easily solve, like the donkeys ran away, you can go get your own donkeys. Like, you don't need them carried. Like, it's not a big deal. And they're like, oh, Luisa, like, even in the big theme song, when she's talking about when Mirabelle is singing all about the Madrigals, you could see, like, they don't even like give her moment in the sun. They're like, okay, Luisa. And then she has to run back to Abuela. And she feels like her worth is tied to her strength. Her worth is tied to her ability to help within the community. And so when she sings her own song, the Surface Pressure song, she's so concerned that she'll be worthless. She knows in her mind that she's worth something, but underneath it all, she's like, if I'm losing my strength, then who am I? Because what good am I going to be if I can't, you know, literally carry everything in this community? It's a lot. but she has nobody to go to. She has nobody to talk to about this because she feels like that's my role in the family. That's my role in this town. Everybody's going to crumble without me. They can't go on without me. She's the rock of the family, and the rock doesn't get any sleep, and nobody really stops to ask the strong person, how are you doing? Do you need a break? They're just like, no, you're fine. You're strong enough, so you can do it all. Exactly. So that's really tough for her.
And would you say that role does go to older sisters a lot of the time?
Yes. Yeah. Although I've seen instances where the youngest carries that role, but a lot of times it's typically the older sister, because it's like, you're older, you're taller, you're wiser, you're stronger, you can do it. Let the baby rest, because she's just a baby, even though the baby's like 50.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about Isabella.
Poor Isabella. Isabella has to be perfect. She's the pretty one with the long hair and just like the princess of the town, going around making all these beautiful flowers, not because she likes flowers, but because she thinks that's what everybody else likes. So she doesn't really get to have an identity. She gets an identity that's just placed on her, which is the pretty one with the flowers and the hair. And she's even going to marry this guy that she doesn't even really like, but she probably feels like that's the best thing for her family. Abuela is going to be happy. It's probably going to be a nice marriage between two great families. But underneath it all, just like Luisa, she's really cracking, and she's just extremely unhappy. Because if everybody else is a mess, I have to be the perfect one. I don't want to be the one that Abuela has to worry about. Let's just keep it together so that this magic can keep growing. I don't want to mess it up. Nobody wants to be the mess up.
Yeah. So let's finally get to Mirabel, who's the star of the show.
Yes. Mirabel is just the ordinary one. She has no gifts. She has no talents. She is in the way. She is awkward. She is weird. And she just drives Abuela nuts because she's not doing anything. She has no role, not because she cannot play a role, but because they put so much stock in this gift that everybody has. And because she doesn't have one, that's terrifying to Abuela, because, oh my gosh, are you going to do something to ruin this? So rather than you ruining everything that we have going on that's really good, I just need you to just stand in the corner and just be quiet. Don't make a mess. Stay out of my way. And there's the interesting part about that dynamic in real life families is we often think of the black sheep as the one who's on drugs or who's having all this sex or like doing all these bad things. But sometimes I see that the black sheep of the family really is the one who chose to be different than everybody else. It could be they're the only one who chose not to go to college, or they're the only one who chose to go to college, or they're the only one who chose to not be a doctor, or whatever it is that is the norm within the family. And that's really Mirabel. She didn't really do anything wrong. It's not her fault she didn't get any gifts, but she's a threat to Abuela because Abuela is just trying to keep this magic going, and she might be the one to actually destroy the magic in Abuela's mind.
So Mirabel doesn't actually have a gift given by this miracle candle thing, but she does end up having a gift in that she brings the community and the family together to kind of like actually solve their problems in a healthy way.
Mirabel is the one who interrupted that trauma cycle. Yeah. She's the one who got Luisa to admit that she has feelings. She's the one who got what's the other sister's name? I forget.
Isabella.
She's the one who got Isabella to admit that she don't want to be perfect, and she don't really want to go around making flowers. Like she likes cacti, and she likes paint, and she just wants to be herself. And she doesn't want to get married, right? Like she is the one who gets people to open up. She got Abuela to recognize her trauma and to apologize and to realize that this family doesn't have to be perfect, and it's not all about your gift. It's just really all about being who you are, as imperfect as you are. And she's the only one who actually went out of her way to find Bruno, bring him back, and get his side of the story. So she indeed is the glue that keeps that family together, even though they don't like that.
Yeah. I saw some therapists on Facebook saying like Mirabel would make an excellent family therapist because she can draw this out of everybody.
Absolutely.
So to transition just a little bit, one of the things that I saw with Mirabel is that in the song about the family Madrigal, she says that everybody in the family is special and amazing, and she's part of the family. So that makes her amazing. That
I
makes her
guess.
special. Like, and you can see like the expression on her face and the tone of her voice. It's like she's trying to will herself to believe this, but
Yes.
it's not really making sense to her. And I think a lot of times as Christians and in the family of God, we have this okay, so I believe the Bible, and the
Uh-huh.
Bible says that God loves me so much that he sent his son to die for me, and he's given me the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit gives me gifts, and he has a purpose for my life. And it's like we just have to grin and force ourselves to believe it because God said it, when it really doesn't actually feel like that,
Yes.
until you walk through something with God
Uh-huh.
and he proves it to you.
Yes. Yes. And I think sometimes as Christians, we compare our gifts to the gifts of other people. We're like, look at that person. They are so great at serving and they're natural. And even though I'm serving, I kind of hate serving. It's not really my thing. Maybe they're better than me. Maybe they're more blessed than I am. Or look at that person. He's a pastor and people just listen to him and he's just a wonderful teacher. And I can't even teach my own kids the Bible because they fall asleep when I'm trying to teach. So I'm clearly something is wrong with me. I'm not special. I don't have the gifts of the Holy Spirit in me because I'm not a good teacher. And really, like, you are the gift, like just as you are. Jesus died for you. Like, he's not like, no, I'm going to die for you because you're more special. You're not special. So I didn't die for you. It's like, no, he died for you just as you are imperfect as you are.
Mm-hmm. And just thinking about the ways that some of the sisters use their gifts in the movie,
Uh-huh.
like you said, like you don't have to go pick up the donkeys and carry them in. Somebody can herd them.
Yes.
Go get your own donkeys, and or you don't have to make things all beautiful with flowers just because you have the ability to. And I see
Right.
sometimes people working within the body of Christ that are doing things, they're making it a lot harder than they
I
need
agree.
to, or they're serving in an area that just isn't bringing them joy, or
Yes.
isn't having a lot of fruit because it's not actually what God is asking them to do. So like
Uh-huh.
I know somebody who had a beautiful voice and had the ability to lead worship, but that's her heart wasn't there to
Yeah.
do that, and so it felt more like a chore to lead worship than an expression of this beautiful gift. She would have rather been doing something else at church, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's okay. Like, that's okay. And sometimes God blesses us with a multitude of gifts. You don't necessarily have to serve with all 24 gifts that you have in the church. Like, it's okay for you to pick the one thing that's your gift and you actually enjoy doing, because Christianity, to me, like, we don't have to be miserable to be Christians. Like, you just don't have to be miserable. I'm not saying that we don't have challenges. Of course we do, but it's okay to serve with joy, doing the thing that feels joyful to you, doing the thing that feels natural and amazing. You know, it doesn't have to be horrific. Like Louisa, for example, like, she was strong, but you can tell she was just kind of over it. Like, I'm just sick of picking up donkeys all day long. I don't like it. She probably doesn't even like donkeys, poor thing.
So we see kind of the metaphor of like the family has these miraculous gifts. The family of God has spiritual gifts
Yes.
and ways that we serve and roles that we play. How about just some of the family dynamic stuff that we see in the Madrigal family? Like, let's apply that to the family of God. How do we play
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
family dynamic roles?
I really like Julieta's role because she actually appears to enjoy her role. Like, it doesn't appear to be a burden to her. I feel like she's the perfect example of what Christianity can look like. Like, is this your natural gift that God gave you? Yes. Do you actually enjoy it? Yes. Like, when she's healing and giving the food, she looks so happy. She looks so at home. When she's in the kitchen, she just looks like, I need to be in the kitchen because I love it here. And I feel like that's the picture of what it looks like. And then setting boundaries, I think, is also very important. When I think of Louisa, like, let me tell you something. Like, when they say, Louisa, the donkeys got out, like, I would say, let me show you how to herd donkeys. And tomorrow, when they get out, like, this is what you should do.
Mm-hmm.
So because you have a specific gift, and I think sometimes I see sometimes in churches where we overuse people because we know this is their calling, and we know this is their gift, and nobody else like stands up and does that role anymore. We're like, okay, this is Anne's role. Only Anne can play this role. And meanwhile, Anne is like burned out. Nobody's asking you if this is what you want to do. So setting boundaries, like Louisa should have done from the beginning, like, okay, I only heard donkeys from 10 to 2. Like anything after that, you heard your own donkeys. Or even when I think about Mirabelle, right? A lot of times as Christians, we don't want to be called out. We don't really like it. Like sometimes we just love it when people only talk about like the perfect things or like the fluffy things in the Bible. But when people actually call you out about something that they're convicted about in a kind way, because I think Mirabelle was pretty kind in the way she communicated with people. It's important that when we have people like that in our midst, that we actually do listen and use wisdom. You don't have to agree with everything that they're saying, but just kind of listen. Like, is there some wisdom to what they're saying? Is there some truth to whatever it is that she's seeing? Are there some changes that I should make? Because I think self-reflection is a great part of Christianity. You know, we're not just walking blindly. And with, I always forget her name, Isabella.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I'm always forgetting her name. Anyway, with Isabella, she's wanting to be this like perfect person. And I see that a lot in Christian sisters. We just want to be perfect in every way, no mistakes ever. We have to remember that God gives us grace. Now, I'm not saying that we should go on just sinning willy-nilly, like, oh, God gives me grace, I'm just going to talk anyhow and do whatever I want. No, but remember that God does give us grace. I don't know that God is expecting us to be perfect in every way all the time. It is okay to also showcase your personality in the house of the Lord. Sometimes when I walk into churches, it's like every woman is just like copy paste. And I'm like, we don't all have to dress the same and look the same and talk the same. Like you can be you. God knows you have a personality. Use your own personality for his glory.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to ask you, is this scratching your need to talk about Encanto?
Oh my gosh, I'm like beyond excited. Like I could talk forever.
Okay, so I'm going to shift gears a little bit and just ask you, if you were given a special gift from a miraculous candle, what do you think it would be?
I think I would be like I'd be like Bruno. I feel like I'd be like, it'd be the same thing as, because honestly, like that is my role already in life. Like I'm the one who says the things nobody wants to say. So I think that would be it, or possibly mind reading. Like I feel like I'd be able to like hear people's thoughts and be like, should I say something or should I just let them have that one?
That's funny. I think like of the characters there, I probably identify the most with Julieta. Like I'm the one that wants to take care of people and cook for them.
Yeah.
And heal them and just like be well adjusted as much as possible. I think that's my character there. I guess like that's about the conversation that we're going to have today. I'm not going to draw it out any longer. No. I mean, we could go deeper, but I just wanted to add like a fun little episode where we could talk about some serious things and family dynamics, but also do it in a fun way and then tie that into just how we relate to the family of God. So Ivy, you are the perfect person to talk about this.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm obsessed. Thank you for letting me talk about my little obsession.
Okay. Well, I hope that you had a fun time listening, everyone. And maybe you can comment on the Instagram post and let me know if you had a role in the family Madrigal, what would it be? Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
The Soul Grit podcast is a production of Soul Grit Resources. You can find more at soulgritresources.com or on the socials at Soul Grit Resources. You can email me at info@soulgritresources.com.